Clements Homebrew, coming at you with a little holiday cheer. That's right, from the kitchen today. We're preparing for the holidays, right? So we've got to get into the mood with the hat. And so what are we making today? We are making classic aged spiked eggnog. That's right. And I've had a few friends that have done this. One of my good buddies that some of you may know is the Canadian Sasquatch Brewery. The Canadian Sasquatch, good old Steve himself, has been making this for a couple of years. And then a few years ago, some dear friends of Kahlua Bourbon and myself introduced this to us. We started enjoying it, and it's just a wonderful dish. I actually have Steve's recipe. I'm going to share that with you with my own little twist. So let's get going. To make this recipe, you're going to need 12 large eggs, a pound of sugar, a teaspoon of nutmeg, fresh grated nutmeg if you can get it, a pint of half and half, a pint of whole milk, and a pint of heavy whipping cream, a cup of Jamaican Spiced Rum, a cup of brandy or cognac, and a cup of whiskey, bourbon whiskey is preferred, and a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt or a good sea salt. Now I'm going to double the recipe, which means I don't need the pint glasses. So we might as well fill it before we begin. And because I'm from the Pacific Northwest, we're going to go with good old Deschutes Jubile Ale. That's right, a nice winter ale. Let's get it going. The recipe takes about 15 minutes to make and a minimum of 14 days to age, and it provides 8 to 10 servings. The first thing that we're going to do is separate the egg whites from the yolks, and then we'll set the egg whites aside for use later. I'm doubling the recipe, so I'm going to have 24 eggs. This is a good time to put our other pint glass to use. If you haven't done this before, you basically kind of go back and forth with your yolk between the two eggs and kind of work out the whites and keep the yolk. We're going to just drop this in this mixer over here. Now that separating the egg whites from the yolks is done, we need a little more beer. Occupational hazard during the holidays when it comes to cooking. We've got our egg whites over here in a large bowl, and over here in the mixer we have all the egg yolks. We're going to go ahead and put the egg whites in the refrigerator for now. The next step is we're going to take our nutmeg and our granulated white sugar, and we're going to put it in with the egg yolks. I'm going to go ahead and get the mixer going, and we're going to go ahead and drop that in. Now remember, you need just a pound of this sugar, but I'm using 2 pounds for double batch. We want to beat the egg yolks along with the sugar and the nutmeg until it falls off the whisk in a solid ribbon. That's just perfect. Now it's time to mix the alcohol and the dairy products along with the sea salt or kosher salt. This brings an interesting discussion. The alcohol could be substituted around several different ways. As I said, in the standard batch size, that's going to be 1 cup of spiced Jamaican rum, 1 cup of brandy or cognac, and 1 cup of bourbon whiskey. But some places don't quite use that mix. In some cases, they substitute, a little favorite of mine, the Grand Marnier instead of the Jamaican rum. That would make it a little more orange flavored, might put in a different holiday tint. But there was one that I particularly liked, and I actually tried, and it was quite good. It's called the Clyde's Common Eggnog. In that version, what you do is you take 12 ounces of the Añejo tequila and 15 ounces of Amontillado sherry. And I didn't have quite the same sherry, but I tell you what, it brings in just a really smooth characteristic with light nuttiness to it. It's just wonderful. So if you've got those ingredients, you want to give it a try, I'd say do it. Now, those that know me, I don't really follow recipes real well, never do. So we're going to do a slight variation with mine. Since I'm doing a double batch, I'm going to go in with 1 cup of Jamaican rum, 1.5 cups of brandy, and then 1.5 cups of bourbon. So let's get this all put together. Now, as you can see, I've run out of room, but being that, for those that don't know, I am a home brewer, I come prepared with sanitized containers, and we're going to get this moving again. If you're making a regular sized batch, you're not going to have this issue, but because I'm making a big batch, I've already cleaned and sanitized the inside and outside of my measuring device. And I'm going to go ahead and take some of the liquid, our alcohol and dairy products, and move some of that across the mixer so we can help dilute the yolks a little bit. And while that's mixing, we've got one more step to do. We're going to put the rest of our egg whites across over here into the dairy products. Now, as gracefully as I can, I'm going to move this big dairy mixture over to my mixing bucket here, my fermentation bucket. And then we're going to go ahead and take our yolks along with some of the dairy and our sugars, and we're going to add that into the bucket. Some of the sugars haven't completely mixed, and that's partially what age does for this. But it also really makes it much more smooth tasting. And obviously, if you're making a single batch, you're not going to have to deal with tubs and everything else. We're going to go ahead and give this a good mix. Now, finally, because I'm making such a large batch, I'm going to be transferring this over to a 3-gallon carboy, glass carboy, a big jug if you will. But you want to age this for 2 weeks minimum. Now, this is an interesting discussion at this point, because how long do you age it? I've heard various things from different people, but I have some experts that I've learned from. 2 weeks minimum to make it smooth, so it's all blended well, all the ingredients come together. But a lot of people say it's better if it's at 2 months or 3 months. Here it is today. It is the 21st of November. This gives me about a little over a month before Christmas Eve when we'll be breaking this out. So we'll have just over a month of age. But a lot of friends say you can age it a year. Certainly you can, but they never get that long. It's gone before then. I do have one good friend that actually sets aside some and ages it each year. And just this year, this is the dreaded 2020, they pulled out a bottle of 2013 eggnog. That's right, I said 2013. This eggnog is 7 years old, refrigerated, and they said it was so smooth, it was absolutely wonderful. Now that might be a little daring. Make sure you label it and make sure it's sealed well if you do. I'm going to be bottling some of this up myself. I do have, because I brew, I've got my bottles and cappers, and so it'll be well sealed and refrigerated. But anyway, I would say go ahead and bring in some holiday cheer this year. Work on your own. And this Kevin at Clements Homebrew is saying, life's too short to drink cheap beer. Bring in some hard, classic, spiked eggnog. Catch you later.